Hello and welcome to this special Actual Tech Media PanelCast. We've got a great show today where we're going to discuss what just happened at the world's biggest and most important security show. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this discussion of what the security world is talking about or was talking about at the RSA Conference. This PanelCast is sponsored by Rubrik and Rapid7, and we're delighted to welcome them today. So before we get to today's content, we do have a few housekeeping items that'll help you get the most out of this session. First off, take a look at the control panel in your browser. That's where you'll want to go if we can help in the unlikely event that you have any technical issues. A browser refresh will fix most issues, but if that doesn't work, let us know in your console and we'll provide further technical assistance. You'll also find a handout section there with lots of great resources that you should check out. It includes links to both Rubrik and Rapid7 and some of their resources, as well as links to our Guerrilla Guides, which provide in-depth coverage of IT topics, as well as the Actual Tech Media Events Center, where you can learn about upcoming events. Finally, at the end of today's PanelCast, we'll be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you do have to be in attendance during the entire live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of today's prize can also be found in the handout section. All right, let's get this dance started. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our panelists today. They're going to be joining us in just a second here. The first is Alpika Singh, a technical marketing architect with Rubrik. Alpika, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Keith, and hello, everyone. I'm a technical marketing architect at Rubrik, and I work with cross-functional teams to ensure that the product which are brought to market by Rubrik can thrive with wide variety of customer engagements. What that boils down to is I work on a lot of technical certifications, a lot of technical marketing collaterals for launch, for our sales team, and any marketing efforts. I do also work on product development and roadmap activities. And in my spare time, I do like to go out, travel, have fun with my family, and exercise a little bit so I can eat a whole bunch of junk food. So handing it back to you, Keith, and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Alpika. Also joining us is Patrick Kiley, Principal Security Consultant with Rapid7. Patrick, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi there. Again, Patrick Kiley. So I'm a Principal Security Consultant, part of the penetration testing team at Rapid7. We have a great team of consultants that work with clients all over the world to help them solve various security issues by proactively testing their systems either live or before they put it in production. And I specialize in embedded systems and transportation.
Great. Terrific. Okay, so Alpika and Patrick, thanks so much for joining me today. I wanted to kick this conversation off with a few fast facts about the conference, which happened, as you know, at the end of April. So this was the 32nd annual RSA conference. That is a long, long time for a conference to run. And it does kind of highlight for me the crucial importance of IT security in every era. And it's becoming, of course, more important than ever. For the show that just ended, there were more than 40,000 attendees. There were 650 speakers and more than 350 sessions. There were 500 exhibitors and 500 members of the media. I've been to a few RSAs in my day, and it really was a great show. I heard it was the same exact way this year. What I wanted to do to start is go over some of the key IT security related data points that were brought out in some of the keynote sessions. Some of the ones that really stood out to me were zero-day exploits. So Kevin Mandia, the CEO of Mandiant, had a keynote, and he discussed the zero-day exploits, and there was something that really struck him. Now, zero-day, for those of you who don't know, is a vulnerability, a flaw for which there is currently no patch that's been released yet. So there's no way to stop it. Now, Kevin mentioned that there were 55 zero-day exploits in 2023. To him, this was a shocking number. In fact, he said, a direct quote, the number of zero days that are happening now, what he said of this is, I've never seen anything like it. And this is a guy who's been in the business, a really long time. That was a striking comment, I thought. Next point, the average data breach cost to companies in 2022 and last year was $4.35 million. That's with an M. That is a lot of money. For those of you who wonder about how crucial security is and the impact it can have on companies, well, there you go. $4.35 million was the average cost of a data breach for a company. Next up, we learned that it took an average of 287 days to contain a data breach. 287 days. So that is an extremely long time. I mean, that's most of a year to finally get over what happens if your company is breached. I can't even imagine the amount of labor, the amount of hours that it takes, and as well as the amount of money to fix something like that. So really striking information. Let's see, there were about, at last count, 37,700 ransomware attacks that are happening every hour globally. Every hour, there are 37,700 ransomware attacks happening. So for those who are wondering about what's going on with ransomware, is it still as big? Is it still as harmful as it was in the last year or two? There's your answer, right? This is just enormous, 37,700 every single hour. So first question for you, Alpika and Patrick. Those statistics I just went over, is there any stuff that surprised you? Was there anything that really stood out in those data points?
So from my perspective, there is so much technology advancement in cybersecurity space. There are so many new startups. There are so many solutions coming about. So what is surprising to me is that the number of ransomware attacks, they are not going down. And these attackers always find clever ways to circumvent all these solutions and get foothold in your get a foothold in your environment and try to extort you. They may or may not be successful, but they are in your environment. So that's what is surprising, that each year I expect that the stats will go down and finally we'll be able to hear that, oh, our ransomware decreased by say 10% to start with, but never seen that. So it's always surprising to see these stats.
Absolutely. What about you, Patrick? Anything that really struck you, that stood out to you through those statistics?
Yeah, the number of 0 days that came out last year, it's almost like we've gone back in time. So like what's old is new again. Especially if you look at some of the ones that came out, such as there's one on a particularly popular firewall vendor, and firewall, many consider to be the cornerstone of a security system, and to have a system that's that deep into the trust boundary and have it be breached in the way it was pretty shocking. And it just shows that a system needs to be protected from not just at the boundary, but throughout the entire network. Every step of the way, from the supply chain all the way through down to the end user, there needs to be security thought of at every single step of the way.
And everything is vulnerable. Exactly. So now let's dive into the meat of the things that were most important, the things that they were talking about most at RSA this year. It was clear to me from watching the sessions and all that the main topic, the key factor in security that is affecting everyone, was the rise of AI, artificial intelligence, and as a subpart of that, Chat GPT. This was a constant source of discussion, a constant topic of conversation in the hallways and the sessions amongst everyone there. So I ask either or both of you, what does the rise of ChatGPT specifically, and AI more generally, mean for security in this modern era?
So when I
it
look
means
at
that the architecture and Sorry. Go ahead.
Patrick, go ahead. No, Patrick, go ahead. I will continue on.
Okay.
Patrick, go ahead, and then we'll move to Alpica.
So yeah, it just means that the a zero trust model, everything is going to become important every step of the way, just like in the previous topic. In fact, right before this panel talk came out, there was a feed about a tool released called PenTest GPT, which directly leverages Chat GPT to help someone like me actually conduct a penetration test. So it's basically weaponizing the AI tools to allow an attacker easier access and maybe discover things that they wouldn't otherwise see on their own, or discover them more quickly. So it's going to be another tool, but the reaches of it are things that we're just starting to barely scratch the surface on, and it can become critical. It's only a matter of time before we see the rise of the machines.
Yeah. Thanks for scaring us even more, Patrick. I appreciate that. Alpica, you were going to say?
Yeah, so I'm 100% agreement with Patrick. And, over the years, whenever you see a new technology that comes to market, we see attackers, they poke at it, find vulnerabilities, and then attack, right? So there are safety rails probably built into the current iteration of LLMs or Chat GPT, but they always find a workaround, and we need to figure out how to handle these workarounds so that we don't see the technology, which is ChatGPT, being used for attacks, right? So a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago, a friend of mine just told me that there was some security misconfiguration as well as some code bug which was part of ChatGPT, and because of which all the sensitive and proprietary information of individuals and companies was seen by everyone. So there you go. There is no boundaries set for each user. So your data is available for everyone to see. So there's a lot going on, and we do need to figure out how to securely use all these apps and AI model so that your data is secure.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us have noticed one particular impact of ChatGPT specifically. I've certainly noticed it, and that is that phishing emails now are much better. The misspellings, the capitalization and punctuation, all of those things that made it easy previously to spot a phishing email. Well, ChatGPT has kind of taken care of a lot of that, and now these phishing emails are looking a lot more dangerous. I mean, have you seen that, and what's your opinion on how this is affecting and what it might mean for the future of social engineering attacks, which is clear now we are not at the point of having those not affect us anymore?
So for me, what I've seen is the tone. Like so it takes emails from certain people, and then they even like if they are reading through Twitter feeds, right? It learns what your tone, how you talk, where you punctuate, and I think it creates those emails like which may sound like your CEO, and you will start divulging information if you're not paying attention to the email ID, and start giving out information which could lead to further attacks in your own organization. So yeah, it's quite scary, and I have gotten into habit of just checking the authenticity of each and every email, so I don't respond or even click on random links. So yeah, it's very scary right now.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, it's definitely going to make it easier for a spear fisher or a fisher to conduct these attacks. And I just noticed a rise over the last year of attacks against my own, from either SMS messages that I get or things that pop up in both my work and my personal email accounts. And they are getting better. One of the things that is going to need to happen is a security awareness program is going to become even more critical in making sure that people are suspicious of anything that comes from outside the organization. And then the tools are going to have to get smart enough to recognize when something is coming in from outside the organization so it can be appropriately flagged.
Great point, Patrick. Employee training seems to me, security training for employees seems to be no longer optional. I mean, every company really should be doing this. Let's turn to the other side of that AI coin, however. We know the bad guys are using it. The white hats, the good guys, the rest of us, can we be leveraging AI to help against, to help in the battle against the bad guys in cybersecurity?
Yeah, if I could just jump in on that one, absolutely. I've seen instances where people who are on the blue side or the defender side actually leverage these AI tools to help them identify and basically do the threat hunting faster and enable them to actually identify if there's a problem and then help them drill down in and get to the meat of it so they can get the response going faster and actually stop the attack earlier in the chain.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
AI definitely helps you expand the surface rather than just running manual, trying to figure out what's going on. So great point, Patrick.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another big topic was cloud security. Most companies seem like they have got at least some of their data, some applications in the cloud. Hybrid environments are, I would say, are probably more the norm than the exception these days. So, a question for both of you: what's your opinion, your impression of the current state of cloud security right now? And let's do this in like a year, over the last year. Do you feel like cloud security is better than it was a year ago, worse than it was, or about the same? Alpika, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So I will sum this up in one word, and that would be different. So security is constantly evolving, and it's difficult to quantify if it's better or worse because we don't measure threat landscape in a linear fashion. You whack one mole and two other pops up somewhere else, right? So, but what we've seen is that the tooling and practices are improving across all organizations, and it's giving defenders stronger capabilities. The attackers are now forced to come up with even more novel approaches to test the boundaries. Um, what I do see is also there's a talent gap in the infosec world, and a lot of people are either retiring or they are leaving the industry for greener pastures due to burnout. And the feed of the fresh talent, if they are coming in, they need experienced people to learn from because you cannot learn about safety procedures or security procedures in a classroom. You need to come to the real world and learn from your real experience. So I see that there's changes plus dearth of people as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Patrick, what's your take right now on the state of cloud security?
So it's not so much that the threat model has changed. It's again, the tooling is getting more and more mature, and the skill set of both attackers and defenders is having to rapidly ramp up to affect it. In fact, we're actually working on a completely different offering, specifically centering around cloud security, run by a very talented coworker of mine. And the thing to remember is initially cloud security was treated just like any other part of the network. It was more storage, it was more shares, it was more applications. They were just running in the cloud. But it turns out that there's a completely different set of tools used to manage those. And because those tools and the methods of access are different, and the accessibility of the cloud is greater, it's a completely different set of tactics and skills that need to be used when you're assessing it. The other big thing that I've noticed, though, is that attackers are actually leveraging cloud assets to make their attacks more effective. If you see something come in from like a random URI and it doesn't quite match your organization, it's going to have a different effect than something that comes in from a trusted, commonly seen cloud endpoint, whether it be any of the major vendors out there. But if it's something that they're used to seeing within their organization, to have an asset that directly links to a cloud endpoint, it's going to possibly pass the sniff test and be acted on and possibly could result in a compromise.
Absolutely. So related to that then, question for either or both of you on cloud security. So as the cloud and associated technology like containers / Kubernetes, cloud native development, and API security continues to get more complex because, of course, there's so much more out there. There's so much more dependencies. There's so much more data here and there and everywhere. Given that giant mix of stuff that is accessible from anywhere, how do companies keep up with it all in terms of their security posture?
So for me, the simple answer would be to invest in data observability, which is what we are seeing with our customers. So with the data observability suite, you can essentially monitor your entire environment. You can remediate data risks, and that includes ransomware or even disaster recovery, right? You can monitor your sensitive data exposure and look for indicators of compromise. So everything has to happen simultaneously so that you are well protected. And you can now combine this with actionable threat intelligence feeds from lot of government agencies like CISA, or even from private or third-party vendors like Microsoft. You can integrate with various SOAR or SIEM integration that can enable you to keep up with latest threat, and you can use this information to find threats in your environment. And of course, we always need a well-trained SecOps team, so you can take advantage of all the advancements in the field. In Rubrik Security Cloud has a lot of SaaS applications to take advantage of your backup data, and that is across single or multi-cloud deployments. And it gives you the lay of the land of all the information, and also gives you the capability of integrating with leading SOAR and SIEM vendors.
Thanks for that information. That is so important to make sure your backups are also protected. So on the cloud, one of the things that cloud computing brings that is good and bad in terms of security is the software supply chain. So, you can have your third-party suppliers, your third-party vendors that are connecting to your network that you don't know what their security standards are, but now they have hooks into your stuff too. How vulnerable would you say, again, for either one of you, how vulnerable would you say is that software supply chain right now?
Well, I wouldn't say it's terribly vulnerable, but it's definitely increasing. If you look at the complexity involved in the SolarWinds attack that took place at the right in the middle of the pandemic when everyone was isolated, when you actually dig into the final reports of that, you see that it was an incredibly complex nation-state involved attack. But it was also very novel in how a lot of the efforts were carried out. And there was clearly a tremendous amount of effort was put in to maintain operational security in that particular attack chain. But it was also incredibly effective. So because of that, it's kind of like everyone's now on notice that the standards that have to be applied to your build tools, to your code repositories, really those have to ramp up with everything else in how they're protected. And it's almost going to become something where companies are going to have to put additional effort and prove that they've applied additional protections to these tools before companies are even going to allow to deploy them internally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to our next RSA topic, and this is no surprise to anyone that this is a big topic also at RSA this year, and that is ransomware. We talked about right at the beginning one of the statistics about the 37,000 plus ransomware attacks happening every hour. But I wanted to ask you each personally, from your perspective, being in the security area with your companies, what are you seeing? We'll start with you, Alpika. Do you see ransomware attacks from where you sit rising, falling, staying about the same? Is it becoming a bigger problem or less of a problem right now from your perspective?
All I can say is that our security team and our ransomware recovery team, they are always busy. They are always trying to work with the customers to get their data recovered. So I am not surprised at all. And, fortunately, all our customers have been able to recover successfully without paying any ransom. But I cannot say the same for most of our non-Rubrik customers. But what is surprising to me is that, with the whole economic and geopolitical tensions that has been happening since 2022, enterprises are not taking, ransomware not seriously. They are continuing to invest in their operations and making sure they are always prepared to treat ransomware as a threat. And it's definitely on the rise. There was a Thales report which came out earlier this year, and in fact, 59% of their responders said that they have seen an increase in the volume and severity of malware attacks. And our reports states exactly the same thing. It's definitely on the rise. And so, you cannot rest easy and not worry about it. What customers need to do is that build a successful remediation strategy, that is develop a great ransomware playbook and keep running drills to ensure that their applications and are recovered successfully without reinfecting their environment. So there has to be great amount of training that goes in for all the personnel, the teams. They need to figure out how to detect threats early and decrease the dwell time, and also how to identify the blast radius, how well they can quarantine the affected data, and how to recover from a clean data point. So net, that has been our customers' playbook, and they keep running these drills with all the SaaS features that Rubrik offers and basically recover their data from air-gapped and immutable uh, data backups. So they also need to figure out if they have a solution for their enterprise, cloud, and SaaS applications. So they need to focus on pretty much everything.
Everything. I mean, that
Yeah.
summarizes it, doesn't it? Yeah. Patrick, from your perspective as a security consultant, what are you seeing? What's going on in your world in terms of ransomware?
So the ransomware events, when they happen, are typically the purvey of our incident response team. But where we come in is actually before they actually occur. A company is going to bring our team in to actually test and use the exact same techniques that adversary would use to come inside and gain access to the network. And really, that's going to be the key point in actually identifying how the adversaries are going to get in and the techniques that they're actually going to use to get to the point that they would hand it over to a ransomware team and a ransomware event could happen. But it just brings to the fore the importance of basically two very important steps of the process. One, testing the security to see where it's at, and two, monitoring the network to actually detect these events before they get to the stage where ransomware can occur. So in the past, an attacker would come in to a network and they would look for data that they could exfiltrate and then somehow turn that into a monetized event or data that they were using if it was kind of an intelligence agency. Or just use it as a form of intelligence gathering. Now, the ransomware is the monetization. So the attacks are still occurring. That hasn't changed. What's changed is instead of exfiltrating data, they're going to try and encrypt the data or extract the data and then hold it for ransom because there's something potentially compromising in it. So, some compromat or some other details. But it just shows that the skills that our team uses to actually assess a network they're the exact same ways that an adversary is going to use to try and get in. And then the monitoring side, being able to detect it when it occurs. And then, of course, we have the exact same teams that the other ones do for after a ransomware event happens. The incident response teams need to be able to come in and help a company respond to that particular ransomware attack.
Right. Absolutely. So here's a question that came in from an attendee here, and I want to get your opinion on it. And this is related to ransomware, of course, in all aspects. So the question is, how do you balance security and usability? While it's important to prioritize security, organizations also need to consider how security measures may impact user experience and overall productivity. So, that's a really important consideration. You can have so much security that it's really hard to get anything done. What do you say in that situation?
So when I look at Rubrik as an organization, what I see it, I've never had issues getting my work done. Because at the beginning, whenever we join, there is good amount of training given to us in terms of security practices, and also it's repeated every year, so we know what's going on, what changes are coming in, what's blocked, what's accessible. We have very clear guidance in terms of where our data needs to be stored, meaning if you're using Google Drive, they will not allow any other application, which is fine for me. Just knowing what is available and what the right practices are, it's always helpful. And just having a single pane of glass, I think is really important. Like if I need to go to 10 different interfaces to just send an email or add an attachment, I think that is going to be painful. So just working with the employees to come up with certain policies that has helped our company overall in terms of productivity, and also maintaining security at the basic level.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on to our next topic now, and I want to direct this one to Patrick. Patrick, let's talk about zero trust. The phrase zero trust is almost as buzzy a buzzword as ransomware, isn't it? It's on everybody's lips, and organizations are learning a lot more about it, starting to look at it, starting to implement it. Is zero trust a silver bullet here? Do you see zero trust as the answer, or is it just part of a larger security solution? What's your opinion on zero trust and where it is right now?
So zero trust is a foundation. Just like construction, you have to have a foundation that everything else can be built upon. Zero trust is also the model for it is a mountain. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to get there, but there are steps that as you're scaling the mountain, the overall security posture of an organization improves. And then once you get to it and you're considered to have a mature zero trust model, it's absolutely critical that all the other steps are taken along the way. So I think it's important. I don't think it's a silver bullet. Everything else that's involved along with it is important, but it is a very, very strong foundation to how an organization can protect itself from all potential avenues of adversary attack. That along with multi-factor authentication is still the most effective attack against identity services. Along with just building that mountain, putting that effort in, and building that zero trust model so that everything can be protected.
Right. And multi-factor authentication is getting even more multi-factor these days, isn't it? With USB keys and things like that add even another layer. So Alpika, what's your current opinion of zero trust, and whether it is kind of a cure-all or just a small part of what companies need to be doing?
So I'm in agreement with Patrick. It's an architecture which must be implemented, but is it the solution? No, I don't think so. But it has to be implemented with all the other solutions to make sure that your endpoints and your network, your data, everything is secured. But it's not a buzzword. Because zero trust architecture always assumes that all your users, devices, application are untrustworthy and compromised, right? So in other words, you don't trust anything, you always verify. So that's when the MFA comes in. So you are always verifying your users, the applications. So it's absolutely needed. And the one thing I have seen so far is that Rubrik has delivered its product based on zero trust. And I feel like that's the primary reason why none of our customers have ever paid any ransom. And there was a question, in fact, about ransomware warranty. And, we have a 10 million warranty based on the zero trust architecture for all our customers, so that in case if they cannot recover from ransomware, we will pay them 10 millions. And I'm proud to say that we've never paid any dollars to anyone. So absolutely fundamental and absolutely needed.
Okay. Okay, I'll pick a question came in also that is specific to Rubrik that I'd like you to answer here. Someone says we have a hybrid environment of Google and Office 365. Does Rubrik handle both of them, or is there a way to migrate around to migrate data around to make it happen so you can use both environments?
So we have, yes, that is correct. We right now support Office 365 only, but Google is not that far behind. It's a roadmap item for us because it's the second most used SaaS application out there. So you do have other ways to protect it. There is something known as managed volumes, and there is VM level protection. So if you work with your sales team, you can definitely figure out how to protect using managed volumes and other SaaS applications as well.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to move on to our next topic here, and this is a sensitive one, certainly for everyone. But we also know the reality of it. In the news constantly over the last several months, most of this year actually, we've been reading about layoff after layoff from the big tech companies. It seems that we're in an era of severe layoffs in the tech sector. So, Patrick, how do companies with fewer employees, smaller budgets, what do they do to protect themselves from attackers? They have less to work with, and there's more to do. How do you solve this seeming unsolvable problem, or can you? Patrick, could you hear me? No, it looks like we might have a issue here with the audio. Alpika, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, great. Is that something you would like to weigh in on?
Hire more staff. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, Patrick. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can. I think we're lagging a little bit.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So
Okay.
we're having, sorry, folks, looks like we are having a few technical issues here. So Alpika, you're still around. Oh, there you are, Patrick.
Yes.
Let's see if we can hear you first of all. Are you still there? Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So we were asking about budgets. So lots of layoffs, smaller budgets, less to go around, and more to protect. What is an organization supposed to do in that situation?
Well, it's going to make security automation just absolutely critical for an organization. Anything that companies can do to make their people more efficient is going to help. But eventually it's going to have to get to the point where they're going to have to staff up again. And let's hope this is just a temporary blip while the economy centers itself after the crazy last few years we've had with the pandemic and everything else going on.
Gotcha. Alpika, what's your perspective on shrinking budgets and more to do?
So, so on the floor this year, I actually spoke to a lot of DLP, which is data loss prevention companies, and it was a very interesting take because they talk a lot about this, that either your organization is very small and you're just scaling up, or you've shrunk in size because of all the situation happening. So I do feel like putting a good data protection laws, data loss prevention solution is going to help a lot of customers, uh, because what it can do is it can prevent a lot of data exfiltration, starting from what's happening in your network to what's happening physically on your servers, and even what's happening on users laptop. And what one such vendor which is of interest to me is Zscaler. We recently announced a partnership with Zscaler basically on day one of RSA, and this was our solution to for data exfiltration and securing companies that are a lot smaller, so that they can protect their data with backup, and also protect data exfiltration and figure out where the threats are. The other thing I feel is just educating your employees about basic security principle, like use VPN when you're not at home, or actually use always, but especially when you are sitting at a cafe with hybrid work environment, right? So just not leaving your workstation unlocked, secure your own Wi-Fi. Just I think getting some basics in place first, and then using cybersecurity solutions and automation will definitely help customers and their organizations.
100%. We keep circling back around to employee training, employee education. One of the best things you can do, obviously, with the resources you have is utilize them to the greatest efficiency. If they are protected, understand what a phishing attack looks like, what a chat GPT phishing attack looks like, then there is less scrambling that IT has to do to fix problems. If you can stop these attacks before they happen, then that's really the the best outcome, isn't it? Not to recover from an attack, but not to have an attack. I think that's fair to say. Well, both of you, thanks so much for this discussion today. I found it absolutely fascinating to discuss what was happening at RSA, the top topics for discussion, what people are talking about, the present and future of IT security. That was what we talked about, and it was absolutely fascinating and enlightening for me. So thank you so much, Alpika Singh and Patrick Colley, for making this discussion happen today. It was a pleasure to have you on.
It was a pleasure
thanks
to
for inviting
see you all. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we wrap up today, though, we have got one more piece of business today, and it is the Amazon gift card prize drawing. And there we go. Our winner of the $250 Amazon gift card for today is Jamal Barnett from Texas. Congratulations, Jamal. We'll be in touch soon to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I'm Keith Ward, and I want to thank our sponsors, Rapid7 and Rubrik, for making this event possible. I also want to remind you again to check out the resources that they have provided in the handout section. Got a few more seconds to do that. I encourage you to go there and see what they have. And thanks, as always, for attending. Without your participation, none of this happens. And I truly mean that. And it was a pleasure to be with you today. So that concludes today's event. And I really hope you have a great rest of your day.